Thank you, everybody. Thank you. There we go. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the delay. For those that are familiar with the situation, when we get to this time of year and we cross bills over, Senate Rules meets after they adjourn from the floor. And so I have been there and had a bill with the highest number, and the Rules Chairman called them in order today. So I was all but at the end. That was a place where the last would be last. So thank you for your attendance today. We have a couple items on the agenda. We're going to go a bit out of order because our distinguished chairman of the Senate Higher Education Committee has another place to be, and this will be our second discussion on this bill. So Senator Tippins, if you would just tell us real briefly again about Senate Bill 187, and we'll see where we go on that.
This bill very simply applies to those students who are in the 8-year glitch period between 2011 and 2019, when we extended Hope Scholarship eligibility to 10 years. Those that are in that enrollment range of years are limited to a 7-year completion of Hope. This extends the opportunity of students with disabilities as defined by the American Disabilities Act to apply for a waiver of time to Georgia Student Finance. It does not increase any hours that are available to it, but just gives them more time as required by their disability. And it will be on a case-by-case basis and reviewed by Georgia Student Finance.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. And to the members of the committee, we're still working off Senate Bill 187 LC 490411. You heard the gentleman's presentation. Same bill as we had before. We had a opportunity for speakers last time. I don't think we even have any signed up for this time. We are in a position to take action on the bill. What's the pleasure of I'm sorry, is there a question? Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee in regards to Senate Bill 187 LC 490411? We have a motion and a second do pass. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion online? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion to send forward with a do pass recommendation, Senate Bill 187 LC 490411. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Senator, it moves forward. You know the rules. The rules chairman has a form for you to fill out over there. Yes, sir. Do you know who is Representative Wiedauer? They had called our office, so if Representative Wiedauer can, I'll take care of that for you. Yes, sir. Okay. Senator Strickland, are you in a hurry? Okay, well, let's do this because it's our. Okay, let's if you okay, let's do that for Senator Orrock. We'll go to Senate Resolution 154. Senate Resolution 154. And I didn't see Senator Jackson. Oh, there you are over there. Hide behind the post, Senator. We'll go. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. And Senator Jackson and I both are. Our health committee has now launched its agenda for the afternoon. Appreciate the courtesy of Chairman Strickland. I'm very pleased to bring to you Senate Resolution 154 today. And I have two brief speakers in support of it from the Metro Chamber and the State Chamber. This is a Strengthening Georgia's Future Workforce, a joint study committee proposal that would put us on the pathway with the appropriate people on the study committee to work towards getting all the data and available information related to improving the workforce available to our economy through setting up a needs-based financial aid program in Georgia. We are proud of the long success of the Hope Scholarship, and that is a merit-based scholarship. You have to, have high achievement consistently in order to qualify for either of the Hope Scholarships. This bill would take Georgia off the short list. There are two states in the country that don't have a needs-based scholarship program. That's Georgia and New Hampshire, oddly enough. I think there's a broad consensus. It's been growing since Chancellor Huckabee called for us to take up this task of creating a needs-based scholarship program. In his days, as he approached retirement, he said, this is going to be the most important things that we could do for Georgia, for our next generation of students. And so this bill, passing this study committee bill, allowing us to create this process over the interim to build a consensus on how we fund and administer financial aid that's based on people's needs as opposed to their grades. That's what we would do here. And I yield for any questions. I appreciate the input from the chairman, we've had an opportunity to talk about this, and he's got a long experience in higher ed issues. And I really appreciated the courtesy extended by Chairman Martin to discuss this prior to bringing it to the committee.
Thank you, Senator. I'm glad you put issues at the end. I thought you were trying to tell people I'd spent a lot of time doing my, extra laps in college, a long time in higher ed. No, I appreciate it. Senator Boric and I go back to 1996, Leadership, Georgia, I believe is when we first met. Yeah. But, yeah. Yes, ma'am. I had just become, yes, that was several years ago. You do have a light flashing here, number one.
Hey, all right. Never been number one before. It feels kind of good. All right.
Be that way again.
Senator Orrock, if just a question about, and I apologize, I hadn't followed the bills coming out of the Senate completely, but doesn't the constitutional amendment on gambling have a needs-based piece to that coming through?
That's a good point. Thank you very much, flagging that, because we were able to put language into that bill that provided that were the bill to be enacted for sports gambling, sports betting, that the language reads that half of those revenues would go towards needs-based scholarship program. Now that's in the hands of the House now, and were that to become law, this study committee could set up the apparatus, could come with the recommendations next year to get us positioned to do exactly that with a portion of those revenues.
Okay, thank you so much. I just didn't know.
Thank you so much.
Number 4. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Senator. Welcome to the House Higher Ed Committee. My question is relating to, will there be opportunities for presidents of HBCUs to be a part of this study committee? Or can there be some study committee hearings held in a city that's housed a HBCU, like Fort Valley State University, for instance?
And that's an excellent suggestion. I just participated yesterday in a ceremony with the governor and lieutenant governor that Senator Halpern launched, recognizing HBCUs and the vital role that they play in our economy and our education system, and the fact that Georgia has more HBCUs than any state in the union. There, I believe, at least 12,500 employees of HBCUs, and the staff and administration in HBCUs clearly understands the need for need-based scholarship program in Georgia. And the speaker, there will be 5 members from the House, 5 from the Senate, with both majority and minority parties represented, and then others as the bill reads. And I think having hearings, Fort Valley State comes to mind, but that's to move around the state and get input and draw heavily on the knowledge base that the HBCUs represent. It's a great input. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman, thank you. What number are you? 12? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I'd like to remind you and others of this community that the state of Georgia does have a needs-based education program set up by Governor Deal called REACH. And a very, very good program that we fund, local collaboration with local school systems. It's in 140 of 180 or maybe 160 now. School system, counties, does a very good job. It would be an excellent program to expand. And, but it's a wonderful program that I've got a real heart for, that I attend those signing ceremonies for those students in 8th grade that we do give scholarships to go to college or technical school. So I hope you'll look at our REACH program and support it.
Yes, sir, Chairman Dickey. And
Could I respond to that, Representative Dickey? I learned as I worked on this on the Senate side about your long commitment to REACH. And one of the appointees is the president of the Georgia Student Finance Commission. And I know that there's work that's very seriously been undertaken for REACH 2.0. And it works perfectly, I think, with the direction of this resolution to get us to draw from the great examples that we've got, which are really admittedly pilots. It didn't, and it's designed in a certain sort of way. You know it better than I do, but we definitely felt it was critical to include the experience of REACH and the past and the future of REACH in tackling this problem and looking how we can do a broad program. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Do we have any online? No further questions. You had somebody that wanted to speak. I think here we have those online, right?
That's right.
Okay, we're going to do that, and I'll give you back, Senator, the last word after the
Thank you.
speakers, if that's satisfactory. In order, Ms. Rickman. You just have to go when you're ready.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Dana Rickman. I'm the president of the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education. Chairman Martin, committee members, thank you very much for allowing me a few moments to speak this afternoon on Senate Resolution 154, focusing on strengthening Georgia's future workforce. This is an incredibly important bill, a resolution, and an incredibly important topic. For us at the partnership, we frequently cite the work of the Southern Regional Education Board. They did a 2030 report sort of sounding the alarm for worker displacement in Georgia over the next 10 years. The pandemic and related industry adjustments accelerated a timeline and an urgency of a response to our changing economic needs. Georgia's efforts to develop reskilling, upskilling, and professional development programs are more important than ever. A recent jobs report by SREB said, and here I'm quoting, "Automation in tandem with the COVID-19 recession is creating a double disruption scenario for workers. In addition to the current disruption from the pandemic-induced lockdowns and economic contractions, technological adoption by companies will transform tasks, jobs, and skills by 2025. 43% of businesses surveyed indicate that they are set to reduce their workforce due to technological integration. 41% plan to expand their use of contractor for task specialized work, and 34% plan to expand their workforce due to technological integration. And so we're seeing a big shift in the skills that are needed of our workforce. The Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education, we have devoted our last 2 editions of our top 10 issues to watch around this looming sort of workforce economic development crisis that is facing Georgia, and the role a strong education and a strong educational system can play in addressing it. Our 2020 edition really focused on the following 3 facts I want to highlight for you. Only 40% of Georgia's adult population has at least an associate's degree. More than 60% of students currently enrolled in our K-12 public system come from low-income families. You sort of couple that with currently about 42% of those entering the university system of Georgia receive a Pell Grant. And so they qualify as low income. And there's a 24 percentage point gap in the 6-year graduation rate between our wealthiest students which their graduation rate's around 70% in 6 years. And our poorest students, their graduation rate are only about 46% over 6 years. And so there's no doubt that the educational attainment of a state's population, its workforce, is critical to supporting its economic development goals. Research from SRAB has really indicated that by 2030, if state and business leaders don't act, Georgia is looking at about 1.5 million workers and their children could be unemployed or stuck in low-wage jobs in an endless cycle of poverty. And this was all before the pandemic and economic crisis that hit last year. And so our current 2021 top 10 issues really looks at that same approach of what do we need to be doing for a strong educational system, for a strong workforce pipeline, and outline the long-term recommendations aimed at these issues to promote an inclusive economic recovery. The cost of post-secondary has become even more of a barrier in the past year than it already was. As we talk about in our top 10, we cite a nationally representative sample of more than 4,000 undergraduate students conducted in the fall of 2020. And it found that fewer than 1 in 5 current college students strongly agreed that their education is going to be worth the cost that they're currently paying. More than half of the 2020 high school graduating class changed their college going plans, 40% of which said they did so now not being able to afford college. And then one last thing I want to end on is a couple of years ago, for those of you who are familiar with the Georgia Partnership, we did a bunch of research on best practices and education policies of all high-performing countries and high-performing states. What did they all have in common? Based on that research and recommendations, we formed the Edquest Georgia Coalition, which now consists of over 40 Georgia-based organizations, educators, advocates, business leaders, such as the Metro Chamber and the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and working together to move a policy platform aimed at making Georgia a top-performing state in education. Our post-secondary access subgroup updated our clear pathways to post-secondary access policy recommendations this past fall based on the pandemic and economic fallout. Among the urgent recommendations really was to address the funding and affordability and equal access to post-secondary and expanding the financial aid options that we have. And so if you look across the country, 46 of the 100 largest state financial aid programs are dispersed on the basis of financial need alone. The 9 programs that specify an estimated family contribution, an EFC maximum in statute or regulation, the average maximum of the EFC is around 4,400, to give you guys some sort of reference and some guidance of the type of aid that we're talking about. And so it's our position that really articulating a statewide needs-based aid program will go a long way toward ensuring that our next generation workforce needs are being met and meet our economic development needs as well. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I suspect we'll have some. I'm going to ask, I'm going to invite you back if I can, just given the time schedule we're on, because
Right.
of the rules that call me late, that the senators have to go. But if we can do that, if we can have you back at a later date, and we'll hold our questions at that time. But thank you, Doctor, for being there. The next speaker, Miss Amy Lancaster. Amy, I know you probably have a great topics to add as well, but I'm going to ask you to be brief, as I know the senators have a meeting to get to, and we will also invite you back. I'll invite you back sight unheard, because we've talked before, and I know you have a lot to say on this issue.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I will be brief. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chairman Martin and members of the committee. I'm Amy Lancaster King, Senior Director of Workforce Development for the Metro Atlanta Chamber, and here to speak also in favor of Senate Resolution 154. We all know Georgia is the #1 place to do business. Despite challenges of COVID, we continue to see record number announcements like Microsoft Software Development Center, 1,500 jobs, Deluxe FinTech Innovation Center, 700 jobs, Invesco Corporate Headquarters, 500 jobs. With regular announcements like these, it's not surprising that the demand for Georgia's talent is outpacing the nation, but our education rates, attainment rates fall behind the national average. Between 2016 and 2020, over 45% of Georgia job postings required a bachelor's degree, and over 60% required an associate's degree or higher. Despite the success of Hope Scholarship to retain talent in the state, Georgia will need more than hope to fulfill our workforce needs. With a state median income of 58,700, you can see why Hope isn't helping a lot of college students. In USG, more than 90% of the students with family income greater than 120,000 were receiving either Hope or Zell Miller, and 30% of those students from higher income families were receiving Zell Miller. Compare that to just 10% of families with family income less than $30,000 receiving Zell Miller. However, these low-income students are putting in the effort and they are working hard to pursue their education. According to a 2018 survey of over 8,000 Georgia college students, 54% of these students from Georgia colleges and universities are experiencing some form of basic needs and security. So that's housing insecurity, including homelessness or food insecurity. About 60% of the students surveyed are actually working. So, and employed students work an average of 24 hours per week. They also found that the students that work the most hours are the same students most likely to experience food and or housing insecurity or homelessness. And 13% of students have children of their own. So no wonder students from more secure family financial backgrounds are more likely to graduate from college. An increased education attainment means higher earnings for individuals and the state. And the more education you have, the lower your risk of being unemployed or needing supportive services. Georgia is one of only 2 states without a robust state-sponsored need-based aid program. We are at a point where we can't afford not to invest in more students to ensure we can meet our workforce needs and retain our position as the #1 place to do business. Thank you for your time, Chairman Martin and committee members. I'm happy to come back and answer any questions you may have.
Well, we're gonna invite you back. I do have a light flashing at number 16. Is that, you look like you're right here. Is that you, Mr. Chairman? Did you press the button by mistake?
No, I pressed it on purpose.
On purpose. Well, you have. Didn't you?
Yeah, I
I
am.
couldn't tell behind the mask if you were ready to
Yeah,
go.
I am
Dean
16.
of the House, Chairman Smyrie.
I just want to say to the office of the OROG that this is a good bill because what it does, because of the downslope of the federal funding and the upscale of tuition and the lowering of the scale in Georgia on need base, which those students that need it the most. And I think that what you're getting at is that workforce development, because it's proven that if you have more education, then more income kicks in. And I think that would be, from that perspective, I think it would bode well. So I think this is a good step in the right direction, because when we started Hope, it was based on need-based. And then over the course of all the years, that's been a evolution and a transformation of it. But to me, having some sort of committee like this to go around the state and gather information, I think it gives us grounds to come back and say and do something as it relates to and do it comprehensively. Yeah.
And when I look around the room, are the only 2 people that were here when we passed Hope in its original form.
We tell it on ourselves. Yes, ma'am.
That's right. But thank
Yeah.
you for your comments, and I appreciate hearing from the Metro Chamber as well as the Georgia Partnership. I would any further questions, happy to ask, but hope that we can move this forward and appreciate the committee's input. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to do this. Here's what we're going to do with this. We keep the matter over. We're going to meet again briefly after session tomorrow on a couple items that we're not going to finish today. The chair would plan to include this in one of them. I would offer that if you'd like to keep it just the way it is, so you don't have to revisit it in the Senate, the chair doesn't have a problem with that. I would not object if you wanted to drop something in there to encourage the meetings around the state. I think that goes unsaid. I think that when the respective co-chairs are appointed, I think they would. I think Chairman Smyrie has seen this happen before. I think it would be around the state. So I would state that for the record, and we don't have to change the resolution and make you have to revisit it in the Senate. You know how things get lost in the late shuffle. So we would look to, I would tell the committee, we would look to entertain this tomorrow for prospective action, and we'll move on. Thank you, Senator. Again, I know we're running tight on time. Senator Jackson, do you can you tell us about yours real quick, knowing that Yeah, Senator Strickland also has something that everybody has to get to. Yes, sir. Tell us about Senate Bill 97.
Of the committee, I'm going to be really quick. Senate Bill 97 is a very simple bill. It increases the presidential out-of-state waivers for from 4%, from 2% to 4% for three historically Black colleges: Albany State University, Savannah State University, and Fort Valley State University. Simply put, those three universities have more seats in the classroom than they have behinds. Those three universities have more bed dormitories than they have students to fill them. Colleges and universities in the state of Georgia already provide a presidential waiver that allows presidents of states with approval by the academic officer to give out-of-state tuition waivers to students. Currently, the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Augusta University, and Georgia State, they are permitted to give 4% of their previous population waivers. What this bill does just allows Savannah State, Albany State, and Fort Valley to have that same right. Instead of 2%, raise it to 4%. And it's not a big number. The current population of Savannah State University is 3,488. The population of Fort Valley is 2,827. The population of Albany State is 6,509. That from that 2% to 4%, it encourages the president to go outside of the borderline states to give out-of-state waivers. It's a way of attracting students to Georgia and put us more on an equal line when presidents go out trying to bring the best and brightest to our great state. With that, Mr. Chairman, open for questions.
Secretary of the committee, Representative Bentley has a question for you. You're still number 4 over there, right, Representative?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Jackson, thank you for bringing this bill.
Mhm.
Why is Fort Valley, the 3 HBCUs, state-funded HBCUs, why are their percentage lower than the other universities?
Well, the other universities are considered, they're considered flagship institutions. So flagship institutions get a little bit more leniency when they go to a track. It works for a school like Georgia Tech when they go to California trying to attract the best and brightest.
Gotcha.
It gives the presidents to tell those students that you could come to Georgia State, you could come to Georgia, you can go to Georgia State and pay in-state tuition instead of paying out-of-state tuition. It makes them more, it sells Georgia Tech money and makes them more, yeah, it makes them more competitive, right? And what we want to do is have Savannah State, Fort Valley State, and Albany State to be able to go to New York, to go to DC, and also make them equal as competitive when we're trying to attract the best and brightest.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Senator Jackson. Just a quick question, because I too have a vested interest in tuition waivers. What are your thoughts about allowing kids that have been in Georgia since they were, say, 2 or 3 years old, they're what we consider DACA recipients to receive this in-state tuition rate as well?
Well, this doesn't apply to DACA students. You have to be a citizen of Georgia, or in this case, you have to be a citizen of the state that you reside in. This does not relate to DACA citizens or the DACA people at this present time.
Senator Jackson, my friend, I like this. I chaired the board at Fort Valley State University, and we wrestle with out-of-state number 1, then we wrestle with the tuition waiver number 2. And I think any kind of leeway that we can get and give to these 3 HBCUs, I think is a major step in the right direction, because it is an issue within our school. I don't know about Savannah State and Albany State, but I do know about Fort Valley State. And I talk to the president all the time about these waivers. And I'm glad you're coming with something of this nature that would address it. So thank you.
Well, Dean, I could go one step further. Like to use a city like the District of Columbia, they give their students their high school students who have a 3-point grade points or average, they give them a scholarship to go to school out of state. But if they apply to a state school like Savannah State, they still have to pay more. But with us giving them a waiver, it's kind of like making it even. They can go to school for free. And when you got a chance to go to school for free in DC or paying in DC or coming to Savannah for free, it's a major game changer.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to do the same thing. I don't see any questions. We're going to do the same thing with you. We're going to hold this over. We may look at it again tomorrow. I want to get with you offline about a question I have, just language. Doesn't change what you're trying to do. I just want to make sure we're doing exactly what you're want to do. I read it to maybe have a little bit of a gray area that we want to make sure we pass it the right way.
Yes, sir,
So
Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
get with you and make sure we do that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Members of the committee, thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to now move on to Senate Bill 107. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a substitute. I'm going to ask Chairman Strickland to come up. If I could, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to introduce part of the change in your bill for you. The committee will note this is dealing with Foster, the program, and I'll let the senator speak to that in a bit. But if you recall, we passed out of this committee earlier this year, House Bill 7, that allowed for the definition of a student in a homeless situation and foster situation. The foster situation is being taken care of in the senator's original bill, but section 1 of this bill is the language, is a portion of the language that this committee passed earlier, Representative Scott brought. So that is what the section 1 that I would like the committee to take under advisement. We'll do the same thing with this bill since you're just seeing it for the first time today. We'll bring it back tomorrow, but I wanted to explain that. And then Senator, if you want to tell us, just give us a brief description of what you're doing here, and then I'll tell you the additional change that we placed in the bill to make sure we were all on the same page.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll be brief. We talked about this. I know, I guess it was end of last week, early this week. I forget now. It's all born together. But with Senate Bill 107, we're providing a pathway for students coming out of our foster care system to have tuition waived. And as you see in the bill, this is also tuition and housing, other expenses associated directly with going to our technical college system. As you may recall, we also have urging language in here asking the Board of Regents to adopt a similar program for our university system. The Constitution does not give us the authority to provide tuition waivers, except for, I believe it's just for the elderly, for whatever reason, our Constitution for a university system. So we couldn't go that far in the bill, but we had urging language there as well. You'll also see language that make sure that we're still getting any other aid that's available from the federal government before we apply this waiver. You'll also see language that makes sure that our departments are working together, our technical schools working with our DFACs to make sure that we're getting all the information about this program that's available for students who may be taking advantage of this. That's the bill.
Thank you. And I want to draw attention and looking at this, I'm not sure that we actually did get, we were trying to do this while we were on the floor today, and I'm not sure we do have the exact language that we need, which is the reason we wanted to carry it forward to tomorrow. But on line 157 in the bill, we wanted to make sure that it was not the intent of the bill to circumvent anything relative to people having tuition paid that would otherwise not be eligible for tuition from the university. People, I'll get tongue tied into legal definition of it, but legal presence. We wanted to make sure that someone that was in the country illegally, whether through deferred action or not, did not fall into this category. And that on lines 157 and 158 was language we looked at to do that. Those are sections within the HOPE eligibility. One has to be a legal resident and a U.S. resident to do that. I think there's actually later language, Senator, that Mr. Walker, and I don't know if we have him online. Michael, can I ask you, is that the latest language that we agreed would accomplish our task? And can you explain to the committee what's going on there on LC 4905 18S 150 on lines 157 and 158?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Walker?
Chairman, I'm present if you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, at lines 157, 158, that is essentially tracking language that would match the eligibility requirements for recipients of Hope Scholarships and Hope Grants, but it does not include the academic-based qualifications. So essentially, those would be the residency eligibility requirements under the Hope Grant. And that was one effort to address concerns that might be in place regarding residency status. Further down in the bill, also at lines 193 through 194, there is some statutory construction language there that essentially says that nothing in this bill shall be construed to provide access to public benefits except as permitted by state and federal law. So we've got kind of a belt and suspenders approach here just to make sure that there would not be unintended access to something that could be construed as a public benefit. Whether this is a public benefit or not, I'm not offering an opinion, just saying that to the extent that it is construed a public benefit, that would only be available and made accessible consistent with state and federal law.
Right, and correct, what I was wondering about the language we talked about in 157, 158, and we can talk about that offline. I want to make sure we do not exclude foster individuals that were in the foster system, that their adoption may have happened with their family member out of state. And that's the one I thought we had some later language, and we'll look at that because we don't want to exclude those individuals were specifically included earlier in the bill, I think on D. So we want to make sure we don't exclude them as they would be, for instance, if they didn't graduate from a Georgia high school and so forth. But that is the intent for the committee that we were looking at, is just make sure belt and suspenders approach, that this was not meant to try to circumvent any of the laws, surrounding access to the universities by people, individuals that would not otherwise. This was to take care of those in the foster system and that were outlined before. And we'll make sure we have that language exact and tightened before we bring it back tomorrow. And with that, are there questions? Dr. Clark, got to tell me a number down here. Number 7? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing the bill. I just have a question. With the substitute, we added the language about the homeless students and giving them in-state tuition. And so right now, what we have is a bill where homeless students would still have to pay tuition and fees just in-state, and foster children and children from that have been adopted would be able to go to school tuition free. Is there an appetite to make it to where the homeless students could also potentially be eligible for waivers, at least through TSG? I just, I think that both categories of students have a significant hardship, or we can make a significant case for why it would be good to waive tuition for both.
Dr. Clark, let me answer that, because I'll answer it as best I can, because I was the person that approached the author of the bill about adding the homeless section to that. That's a valid policy discussion. What you suggest, I suggest that it may, be something that needs to travel on its own bill, because this was, vetted through the Senate, and there was, I think there may have been other reasons where this originally came from, about the foster children's, or I don't know if children's the right word. The proper term of art is probably the individuals that were in the foster system. The state had some reason to provide additional access to education for them. So to answer your question, I think it's a valid policy discussion. I think the step we're making in this bill is what the author agreed to accept on his bill, and not have that policy decision. That's another large policy decision that we don't want to get caught the foster system waiver in that. Number 15.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have a fiscal note?
We did, and that was actually, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, also to address the question Representative Clark raised. One of the things you want to do in any program like that is to try to fiscally analyze it. That's one of the challenges that I initially would see with what you're talking about. We got to make sure we know exactly how many people may qualify there. So it's a legitimate point that I think probably needs to run in a standalone bill so we can get it right. But I don't disagree with you on the policy lining up with this. There was a fiscal note done on the foster care child portion. And the challenge we had, it was inconclusive because we don't know how many students will actually take advantage of that. The number we arrived at that I shared last time, I don't have it from me right now, that we thought the costs would be. Do you remember the number was? I had it last time. So if you don't mind me.
Tom Rollins, defects director. So for the, remember that we already right now we have about 325 students who are participating in our educational and training vouchers programs. The average cost at TCSG is about $3,000 a year. That's not including room and board. We do have room and board available at North Georgia and South Georgia technical colleges. But we're pretty, I think the maximum we projected was about $120,000 on the technical college side. And we really, in reality, Pell Grant is going to cover a lot of the TCSG costs. So what we're doing is we're essentially lowering the tuition and room and board to what is already available through DFACS's programs. Of course, if the university system adopts this, we're talking maybe a couple of $1 million. But right now we have 80% of the children who are, the youth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a good point. 80% of the young adults who are participating in this program now are going to either TCSG or really most of them are in USG programs. And then about 20% are in our independent colleges and in similar situations.
If I may continue, Mr. Chairman, actually to follow up with your answer there. So under the current program, these students are receiving these benefits, but it's not full coverage. In other words, they're getting tuition assistance, but I'm wondering, under this language, is there any portion of the college expense that is the responsibility of the student?
So what we're trying to do here is, to the greatest extent possible, lower the cost to what is available through our federal and state education and training vouchers, as well as the support that we give. We have about 780 youth or young adults between the ages of 18 and 21 who are in our extended foster care system, is what we call it. It's really an independent living program for young adults. And of course, they're getting benefits through that as well. So we're kind of trying to meet in the middle. Let's use our federal and state programs, but let's also make sure that these young people can eat and have a regular life, as well as get a good education. I have to pay a lot of fees and books and that kind of thing.
I'm familiar with the fees and the books and the extra
I'm
costs.
sure. I know the feeling.
And if I can, I didn't mean to cut you off, Senator. It was great that you answered Dr. Clark's question further. I think that the Senate resolution we had, Dr. Clark, 154 will go and drive toward the situation for students in a homeless situation as well. So that'll be something that drives forward. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak to this? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we don't. Number 4, Secretary of the Committee, Representative Bentley.
It's more for Director Rollins.
Yes, ma'am.
You and I were recently in a meeting down in Taylor County.
Right.
I just want to make sure that, does this bill have any bearing on the Georgia Center there in Reynolds, where we met about a couple of weeks ago? This won't have any bearings
No,
on
ma'am,
that?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Those, I think primarily those are under 18. But the youth who are in our custody, who do want to take advantage, who are currently in our foster care system, who do want to graduate from it and stay with us and let us support them through college, all of those will benefit. So.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming down to Taylor County and meeting with me on that very important issue.
It's always good to be down in your part of the world.
Thank you.
Strawberry Festival coming up?
Oh, yes, we will. Yes, we have a festival.
Okay.
And if you come, I will, just come.
Blueberries, or is it?
Strawberries.
Strawberries, okay. That's the queen. I remember.
Anything that's last name is berries, the senator is interested in strawberries, blueberries, raspberries.
Mhm.
He might even go, since we're in Georgia, he might even go with peaches when we get Chairman Dickey.
Oh, I definitely
To
would.
be the.
That's right.
Yeah, yes, sir. Well, we have that. Are there any questions more from the committee on this? Again, I've corresponded with, by text with, our attorney, and I think there was another sub that he had sent us that had language that made sure that we weren't, inadvertently excluding, folks, youth that had been in the system that might have been adopted by family members outside the state. So we'll include that, and get that out tomorrow. One question I want to ask the author, and if I'll get with Ms. Rollins after the meeting is, in some place in the bill, I don't have the line number here, you talk about they have to make application for FAFSA. I assume that is to get those funds if they're available. And not any kind of, it was mentioned by somebody earlier that they just have to complete an application, as if that was somehow trying to verify their eligibility of being, in the United States legally. That is to actually draw funds down. So to that end, they may or may not be eligible for those funds, but we may want to do more than complete an application. We may want to tighten that language just a bit while we're at it tomorrow, but we're ready to move.
Certainly.
We'll do
Just
that.
comment on that. The point of that, of course, is that to the extent this is a sort
waiver.
of it's a waiver, it's kind of the payer of last resort.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. Well, I know we've run late. We've run past the hour here, but we're going to try to get this together tomorrow as well. So look for a meeting notification. I thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
And you're going to have Representative Reeves is going to carry this
That's correct.
when we get through. So we'll have that, and we'll have those items tomorrow. If there's no further business before the committee, will stand adjourned without objection, and we are adjourned.